Libération is leading, as are most French newspapers this Thursday, on the whole question of Ukraine and the bloodshed there. 26 deaths on Tuesday and, hundreds injured as well. Now, protesters are organising ways to stand up to the Yanukovych government, and that's the headline on the front page for Libé. It's arguing that Yanukovych is more violent than ever. The headline there, you can see l'épreuve de force. That means showdown, the showdown between the opposition and protesters on one side and President Viktor Yanukovych on the other.
And the Catholic Daily Le Croix, pretty much the same headline and photo as well.
Well, yeah, that's really striking this Thursday. We can see, again, a picture of a protester wearing the tin hat that's what protesters are wearing for this wave of protest. There you can see violence et répression, so violence and crackdown. Now, Le Croix is saying Tuesday's violence has deepened the crisis in the country. European leaders are divided about what approach to take, and Europe is just not able to respond to events quickly enough or in any way unanimously. Now, it says there in its editorial that Ukraine is nothing less than a shipwreck on EU borders, and I thought one of the striking comparisons in that editorial there in La Croix was about events in Poland 3 decades ago. If you remember, there was a whole wave of protests for the Solidarity movement, Lech Wałęsa, in that country. And that event brought out thousands of people in France onto the streets to defend the rights of Polish people. What do we see now, Stuart? 30 years on, Ukraine is just next to Poland, after all. Nothing in difference, La Croix says. So La Croix, perhaps thinking there also of a Polish pope, because that is the Catholic Daily, after all.
Testing times for European diplomacy then. You pulled out a piece in L'Opinion, haven't you?
Yeah, L'Opinion's opinion about the events in Ukraine is on its front page, very striking. This is a wham-bam, big failure for European diplomacy. There you can see l'Europe diplomatique en échec. Now, it says that the Ukrainians are paying the price for EU incompetence. Western countries have piled up error on error with this, and perhaps not very kindly to its French government, it's actually pointing the finger at, on the one hand, Laurent Fabius, the French foreign minister, who's issued a communiqué saying, well, we would like the situation to calm down, we would like to see dialogue prevail. At the same time, his boss, the French president, François Hollande, is issuing a communiqué saying, we condemn the unacceptable police violence and we want sanctions now. So, of course, not on the same song sheet. That's L'Opinion's opinion about that. Not even the French government can be on the same song sheet in different offices in Paris. So what do you see across the whole of Europe?
You mentioned that phrase, finger pointing, not just finger pointing at France and at the EU, also at the US, some of the papers.
Well, Le Figaro has this. It has a piece about Washington's involvement, or lack of it. It has been largely absent from the diplomatic wranglings that have been going on. There you can see Le Figaro's headline on that story there. It's looking for the key, la clé, to the Putin equation. It can't quite find the right way, and Ukraine figures this in this whole approach to how to deal with Putin, who, as we know, is a larger-than-life character, a maverick personality, hard to pin down, and who is working on all engines go. Now, Le Figaro there is saying that what really pulls Washington back from really being affirmative about Ukraine is really has to do with 2008 and the Russia-Georgia conflict. Back then, Le Figaro says Washington got burnt by being overly supportive of Georgia. You don't want to get into a tussle with Moscow about geopolitical issues when you don't know how it's going to pan out. So Le Figaro there, actually, again, like several French papers, critical of the EU and European leaders, but also of Washington, Stuart.
Okay, well, a lot of coverage of Ukraine in the French papers. Not every French paper, though, is leading on this. Some other stories around.
Well, the front page of Le Parisien aujourd'hui en France, which is perhaps one of the most popular papers in the country, is not doing Ukraine at all this Thursday. There you can see évadés fiscaux. Tax evaders, ils se confessent, they're fessing up, Stuart. Now, this is actually to do with 16,000 people in France who have no choice because of agreements between Switzerland and France about to come clean about what they've got, the cash they've got in Swiss bank accounts. Now, for the state of France, that represents the coffers, 230 million euros coming in, so a nice earner. The paper interviews a couple of people saying, well, it wasn't my fault. I inherited this mess. So of course, you have to be very sympathetic to all those rich people. The cartoon is very nice, Stuart. You'll love it. There you can see Mr. Dupont, and he's leaving Switzerland saying, oh, I'm really fed up. And he's got his suitcases stashed with cash there, you can see. On the one hand, they don't like rich people in France anymore. And on the other hand, the Swiss don't like foreigners. And you've got to remember, of course, that the referendum recently the Swiss chose to boot EU workers out. You know, they don't want to have
to stay right on the border, won't you?
or go somewhere completely different. I don't know where.
Nick, thanks very much. Nick
Thank you,
Rushworth, with the French newspapers here on France 24 today. Coming up after the break, with all the latest news, of course, on that truce announced in Ukraine. Plus today, we're going to be with poor rural farmers in the north of Thailand. This is they offer their support, urging their Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra to cling to power despite the deaths now of 5 people this week in ongoing anti-government protests. We'll be speaking to them in Focus in around about 15 minutes' time.